Alrighty, so today we're going to go through some Vellum. When I first saw Vellum, I wanted to try some simple stuff, so you'll find a couple little simple things on my YouTube. But this is this is kind of like my grand machination and my big project I'll probably be working on for a while. And that's just adding as much balloons in collision as possible while keeping things interesting. I'll show you the base of my setup because it's actually a really simple base that can kind of be grown into whatever you want it to be. But it's also, I felt like it was important to share some of my work because Vellum is a little different to work in than previous pipelines. Even in Houdini, I mean, or just workflows, I guess, in that case. So we're going to start by dropping in a sphere and setting it to a polygon mesh so we can mesh it out. You can, of course, control your poly count and everything, however the heck you want. I'm just going to make it pretty simple right now, though. So now we're going to do a Vellum balloon. So on this Vellum, you have 3 nodes, and this is where Vellum is different. It's a different workflow than everything I've done personally so far, at least. Is you have to make sure that your Vellum geometry and your constraint geometry are always kind of in tandem. You also have this collision geometry. I haven't really messed with it too much. I'm not entirely certain what it's for. I have a sneaking suspicion it's for internal collisions, though, because external collisions I haven't been able to really get to function the way I like. And I'm going to show you the way that I got external collisions to work through different means. So I'll have to play with this collisions node a little more, as well as the constraint geometry. I haven't really figured out a good usage for either of those yet. Except I know you need the constraint geometry after you set up Vellum. If you want to keep running Vellum, you need constraint geometry. Which is kind of like why we have to do this whole kind of different workflow. So we're going to Vellum pack. This is normally where I would pack, right? But you can't just pack, unfortunately. I could show you, here I'll show you why in DOPNet. So we're going to open up a DOPNet, and then we're going to make a box, because we need something to run into. So we're just going to look at this, kind of center ourselves on our sphere, and just press F to go into it, and scroll the mouse wheel to move out. We're going to connect our box into the 4th input, and then pass these 2 into our first 2 inputs. So basically we're taking our geo and putting it into input 1 or 0, and taking our pressure and putting that at input 2 or the 0. And so then we do a Vellum solver in here. We're going to want a little bit of gravity because our whole entire simulation kind of goes off this idea of balloons rising, which is kind of just negative gravity. I saw it anyways. It's just, you know, positive gravity. Like, just switch the gravity from going up at 9.8 to going, or from going down at 9.8 to going up at 9.8. My bad. Okay, so now we want a Vellum object. SideEffects really configured this one well. I appreciate this. Having our geometry and everything is already hooked up, so I know it's right and op input path and everything. It's a time saver, honestly, and that's something I've noticed about the H17 a lot anyways, is there's a lot of little time savers that they've added, which I appreciate greatly. Because Houdini is something where the little things really add up quick. Okay, we're going to create a merge. And then we're going to create a static object. So that's the thing, if you want your spheres to move, or your boxes to move around in the scene, you can actually still use static, which was kind of interesting to me. But it's because there's no point deformations on the geo itself, so as long as it has a location and somewhere to run into, it's fine. Okay, so we're going to put our merge down here, and this merge is basically what this little DOPNet's doing right now is it's saying, give me my Vellum object. In this case, it's our sphere. Okay, I have my Vellum object. I'm going to solve that. So this is where it's looking at that Vellum object, where it is at in space, and it's determining if it's rising and all that stuff. This is really what's running the sim. So gravity is then controlling the rise of the sim. how much it's moving up, the force in the X, Y, and Z. And then we have our static object here, and that's kind of acting as a final solve. Like, are you within this area? Are you running into this static object? Then solve. So it's all it all loops back on itself, basically. Okay. So now we take our op input path from here, because we just need this little bit of code, op input path. That tells us on our DOPNet which little input we're getting. And we're going to go like this, and go 3, because that's where we are, or the third one. And of course click DOP. I don't want to sim out the whole thing, but I do want to sim it. And it's not simming. Or at least it's struggling. Ah, right. Because we have a box in the middle of our sphere. Oops. So let's make this 100, because that's going to be useful later to have that size. And then put it up by 65. So now we have this kind of big box. Okay. And now we should rise, and we hit it and bounce off. Cool, cool, cool. So that's like the really simple, I want to run a floating balloon into something. That'll get you there. But now to get into kind of the more technical packing and, you know, the scaling of the simulation, basically. So I'm actually going to start out with the easy part and go to this box first. So we're going to do an ISO offset. And that'll just give us a volume. And if you know anything about destruction, you know what I'm going to do next, and that's a scatter. Because basically we're going to scatter all these points in here. I want 200 things to collide with. So because we used the ISO offset, we're getting the points in here. If we didn't do the ISO offset, all of our points would just be on the outside of the box, which isn't useful in my opinion. So ISO offset. Okay. Now we want to make another box, but make this one uniform scale of 3. And then do a copy to points. Actually, I want to pack this first. Need to clean this up a little bit too. So we're going to move this over here. Just kill this for now. Okay, so we have our box. Doesn't really have anything going on with it. It's just a box. And then we're going to pack the box, which, yet again, doesn't really do anything. It just allows us to pack the box, and it kind of makes the next steps work. Actually, so these are our primitives to copy. These are the points to copy to. So now we have all these primitives all over the place. Yay! But why did we pack? Why did we do all that? Okay. So now let's color. Let's do primitive. Let's do random. And look at there. So now we have random color and everything. That's one of the benefits of packing. There's also a lot of like geo thought process on it and everything else too. But this is one of the biggest reasons why I like packing. Color. Because we can also control that color through a shader. And then we get like a really diverse shader right off the bat without even really having to do much. Like honestly, so all I'm going to do is set up the shader to take in this color variable, and then we have everything colored. Done, like it's done. That's just way quicker. Okay, so next up I'm going to go and make the material. Make sure that this is not following your selection. It just makes it quicker to transition between the two areas. Okay. So I already have this plastic one created, but I'll just break it, just because I don't really care. It's not that complex. Okay, so now we're gonna make sure, we just want to make sure that we're using pack color, because so if you see in here, it's this will tint the base color with the CD attributes stored on rendered pack primitives. So this is taking that CD variable that we just controlled with color, that made it like randomly color everything, and this is then taking in that data And now we're coloring everything based off of that. And then I think, yeah, well, I mean, I know, but you can also like shade it within here, right? Like you can set kind of your LUT a little bit, is the idea. So you can make it like really red or whatever. I kind of just like leaving it like a light white yellowish color. And now we're all colorful. We go to render, and we get a decent looking render. So this is even something that if you just want to set up a lot of objects and have them all shaded, this is a good way to do it. This is the way I do it. Okay. And looky there! Now we have all these. And if we simulate, let's see if it finds one. It might not be able to find one. Oh yeah, it found one. Yep, see? So it's bouncing off of them. Even though it's not like... Even though the setup wasn't super crazy. Okay. So that's just the basic kind of like setup for that side. But now let's go into the Vellum. So we got this out of the way. Got all of our collision geometry done. Let's do the hard part. So yeah, this is where I was saying you can definitely just take... You just have to make sure to have these two variables, your constraint and your geo. Because now I'm going to show you... Like if I were to pack this, even, the sim just stops working. So you can't take the kind of old school approach of packing. You have to use the new school approach, which just so happens to be this way. Luckily they made Vellum pack and unpack, so we didn't have to make our own. But I don't know why they would. Side effects would never screw anyone over like that. Don't see that happening. Okay. So now we are going to make a... So now we packed everything. So the same way that we packed these cubes to integrate them into the bigger bounding box or whatever, and just make a bunch of like cubes that are a bunch of colors or whatever, we're doing the same thing. Except now we're taking in the Vellum soft body data instead of just packing a cube. The geometry is a little more complex. The idea is the same. So we're going to create a grid. And this grid is, yet again, it's the same idea. We're just going to project everything off this grid. So I'm just going to set this to 20 by 20 because it's faster. But I mean, you can really take this pretty high. Like you can go crazy with that. And then we're going to do a mountain. This works the same way as if this just adds noise to the grid. You can do the same thing with a point wrangle or whatever. It's all the same idea. This is just, I tend to go this route because it's usually quicker. I don't want that much. Let's go like 25 because we aren't going to use any of this data. We're just using all these points, so it can look like garbage and we'll still be happy. Okay, so that supplies our points, that supplies our geo, and now we have this. So we have all of these balloons just kind of randomly dispersed across a grid. And of course you can use like other stuff. You can plug in a sphere here, whatever the heck you want, I don't care. Okay. And then we just want to unclick transform using point orientations, and that's mainly to make sure, because so if we look here right now, everything is kind of like right because I click that. But if you don't hit that, then it reads the normal of the grid itself, and it applies that normal to the sphere when it places it. So then you end up getting these kind of like randomly pointed soft bodies, which is great. I mean, you might actually want this exact thing for your sim. I don't, because I'm using balloons. I just want them all to be floating up, so I turn that off. And now they're all pointing up. They use their native normal instead of making a new normal. Okay, so now to apply the same idea that we just did. Actually, I'm going to show you something else. So we can either drop down a new color node, or my favorite thing, if you hold down Alt over some nodes, and you just click and drag, bam, same nodes. So now we're all colored here. We'll check out the render, make sure everything's working. I'm in the material node right now, make sure you recognize that, because we will have to mess with the Vellum pack a little bit. And for now, that's looking good because we haven't added a headlight or any type of light to the scene, so the lighting is going to be wonky. But really, all we want to see is, are they colored? And are they multiple colors? Yes and yes, so we're good. Next step. Alrighty. Because if we go to Vellum Unpack, you'll notice, oh wow, there's no color, and there's no color. But, just because we need CD, and then we need our material. So if you just do CD, they will come in colored, but they won't have any type of material. You won't get these cool reflections or whatever. Like, it's the shader is where everything happens for look dev. Okay. Now I'm just going to take this one instead. And plug it in the same way we plugged in the other one. And now everything is rendered out. It's looking good. Okay. Other than we are starting out with some geometry colliding right off the bat. So we're going to go into our foundation box and raise that to 75. Just to be safe. Pre-collisions, I've never been a huge fan of pre-collisions. I like letting the sim run and then jumping in and saving the frames that I care about more than I do like just starting on a certain frame or whatever. Let the sim be, it looks more natural in my opinion if you just kind of let the sim run and then use part of it instead of making it start kind of wonky. Yeah. So now you can just click play, and honestly, this is going to take forever. So I would not recommend using the viewport to do everything for this sim because there's so many balloons. This is only 20 by, this is like what, 400 balloons? I think. Something like that, 20 by 20. Yeah, it's like 400, and this is like 200 cubes. So it's a decent sized sim, honestly. But the nice part about making your own dops and everything is it's a hell of a lot easier to cache. So we just file cache. Drag that in there. And then I'm just going to set, then of course, you can load from disk and then save to disk. But just for the essence of time, I'm just going to find this one. It's already kind of done. Oh. Here, actually, let's just do this. So I'm just going to close this one and open up my other sim. Just to kind of show you what it looks like when it's running. Yeah, as you can see, this sim runs pretty heavy. And I'm running an 8-core, so this isn't like a tiny CPU. Pretty good CPU. It's just also a pretty good sim. There we go. I'm just going to jump to a frame because that'll be easier. I should just be loading it from memory. I don't know what it's doing. There we go. So as we can see here, we're getting a bunch of just stuff bouncing off. And that's kind of like the idea behind this setup. And this one is using, I think it did like 80 by 80 balloons, so it's like 640 balloons and 200 collision cubes turned into. So, yeah. But with this, I mean, you can get, mainly, I don't even really care for the above thing because it looks like kind of crappy. Just a bunch of random balloons floating. But if you do something like this type of render, or actually, let's just raise it up to 120. Yeah, this is where it starts to look good. once you have some balloons that are kind of separated. So my next plan is basically to cut out all the balloons that don't really run into anything, and then just kind of have this awesome. I mean, this looks awesome to me, and the shader's not set up properly because it's a file, but yeah, you can kind of get the idea from this what it looks like, kind of. And of course, it's gonna look better in here, but it's also gonna take forever to cook. All right, let's go into here. Just to prove that it still renders correctly in normal settings. As long as you're using your own files and materials are set up properly, it should be fine. The only reason why this one isn't really running right now is because I use plastic 1 and plastic. And I don't have plastic 1 and plastic 2 for this one, so. But yeah, tell me what you think. If you like what you see, let me know. This was a fun one to set up. It was a little different. As I said, everything is just a little different right now. What the hell? It's because I dropped on that thing again. Yeah. Just make sure real quick that it's still rendering correctly. It should. Yeah. And then of course, you can add a skylight and everything else you want to add. I tend to mess with this. I'll make it physically based render almost always. And then I increase my noise to 0.04. Because I'm garbage level. Yeah, we're still getting this weird black thing. I don't know what's happening. It's interesting. Interested to see what's causing that. The only thing I can figure is that I have the same material being run to different things. Is it the same thing? Plastic 1. Run, sun, sun. That might not even help it, honestly. I think it's just having some issues. It's having issues thinking. And the materials going between this packing and unpacking thing have been interesting, to put it lightly. Yeah, there we go, it's fine. So you may have to make a different plastic material for your boxes and your balloons. Just so you know. If you have any issues like that. There shouldn't be any issues, but there could be. The joy. For the final render, physical based rendering is what I use. Noise level, I usually bring this up to 0.04 because it's just not that bad. Whoa, that's so weird. So it's like when I increase the noise level, it makes the color go away. I actually don't know what's causing that. Weird. Anyways. Weird. Yeah, it's fine now. It's just have it. This is all very new stuff, so I'm sure it's gonna be a fun time getting everything honed in for side effects here. I'll increase my tile size to 48 because that makes it just quicker. Makes your tile size 3 times as big, so if you're doing the actual full render, it's quicker. I use all my processors because I don't really do much when I'm rendering. And that's just kind of the setup I used. I also use depth of field and motion blur, but you don't have to. Alrighty. If you like the tutorial, let me know what you think. I've been enjoying Vellum a lot, so this helped you out, let me know. Drop a like, subscribe if you feel like it. Thank you for watching.